Coming up on Podcast the Movie, the podcast, we talk a little bit about ebooks, Kindle, great reads that you need to check out. We talk a little bit about the Outerworlds, the crazy, cool sci-fi game from Obsidian, and the cool story and the RPG elements that game really lets you do to tell your own story. We talk a little bit about Casino, and we talk a little bit about Leah Remini, the Scientology documentary on Netflix, and of course, Martin Scorsese, Goodfellas. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Podcast the Movie, the podcast. This is the best movie podcast said by God himself. He told it to me in an email. So if you don't believe me, go ahead.
Podcast@gmail.com. Sorry.
Exactly. If you're wondering who the fuck that was Tyler Weiss joining me once again. How you doing, my man?
You guys acting like a bunch of wise guys already.
Oh.
Hey, you calling us a wise guy? You calling me a wise guy?
No.
Whoa.
Mr. Rubio, Mr. Rubyen, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good.
Oh. You're doing okay, huh? You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
You're doing pretty good. Okay. Okay, Austin, how you doing?
Oh, I'm feeling pretty ravioli today. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that was the worst. That's the worst. Okay. We all apologize for Austin.
Yeah.
What? Y'all don't like ravioli?
If you found that to be problematic, you're correct. All right.
You should probably stop listening to the podcast now. Then I'm just gonna go ahead and put that out.
I'm gonna tell you that's gonna continue,
guys.
in full force.
I know at least some of us are part Italian. It's okay.
Some of us.
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
Which one of us?
Definitely
me.
Someone can we boot Tyler from the Discord?
This is me.
Yeah, this is going to be the first episode that Weiss is not on because it's way too much, way too early for that. All right, guys,
you gonna kick him out of this podcast?
I think
I'm
boot him
I'm
out.
done.
He's not a made man.
He's gonna be sleeping with the fishes by the end of this podcast.
Yep. Let me tell you guys. I have been watching a lot of Marvel movies.
Okay.
I've mentioned a little bit last podcast that I was in no particular order going back and revisiting, some of the other movies just to kind of, I don't know, I was in the mood for something light and fun and relaxing. And at the same time, we had WandaVision just finish up and we got Winter Soldier Falcon coming up. And
very soon.
Very soon, actually. Yeah, it's just about a week
days
away
away
now.
Yep.
Yeah, so I had a good time with that. I'm not going to go too much into it because we've talked a lot of Marvel on this podcast, but I don't know if you guys took a similar approach to just watching some lighter stuff. But let's start with Mr. Austin this week. Yes, I'm looking at you. Hey, I'm looking at you.
Hey, whoa, thanks for talking to me, bud. I don't think I watched anything fancy this weekend. I think I watched nothing. Don't think I watched anything. I think I watched the movie. Watched it back on Monday. It was a real great movie.
Hey, have you played any video games?
Wow, you know what? I think I have. Actually. I actually restarted playing the Outerworlds. I don't know if y'all played through that gem.
I know of that.
Outerworlds was my favorite game, I believe.
I know of that game.
What, 2019 when that came out?
I think it was 2019. But I for shits, I was playing Fallout New Vegas, and I was like, wow, why do I keep replaying Fallout New Vegas? Because it's fantastic. But I was like, why do I keep replaying this when Obsidian released the Outer Worlds, which is sort of Fallout New Vegas in space? Why not just play that? Because I've never finished it. And I just restarted it because I never finished it before. And this time through, it is great. Like, I love all of it. It's awesome. So, yes.
I really enjoyed it, and what I appreciate the most about it, and I know that it's not, this ain't a gaming podcast, but, we got something to talk about here. And what I really liked is it had an old-school RPG feel in a lot of ways where you could really make your character do whatever you wanted. So I had a guy whose name was Gus Reynolds Jr. He was a cowboy. and he was a wise cracking cowboy basically. So he used like revolvers, and he had a max speech skill. And I'm not gonna spoil the game, but you know did you finish the game?
No, so when I very first played the game, the farthest I got was to the Groundbreaker. Like I got out of Edgewater and I went to the Groundbreaker. So it was like
not very far at all.
It's only like 5-10 hours in is as far as I got the first time.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, the last kind of mission that you do is kind of this epic climb through a bunch of different enemies, and depending on how you align with different factions and what things that you did will determine kind of all who's there. And a lot of people would basically fight their way all the way up to kind of the last boss, this epic conclusion. My guy, since he was maxed out in speech, I would just walk up and I would be like, "So, dude, I'm actually heading to the boss. I'm gonna go deliver something." And they'd be like, "Okay." And I skipped all of it because I had max speech skill. It was completely overpowered and busted, and it was the funniest thing ever.
Well, listen,
That's
man.
awesome.
Whenever I play any like Obsidian or Bethesda game, I always max out my charisma and my speech.
Oh
like,
yeah,
always. That's just the way you got to play.
It's really
it.
overpowered. It sucks early on, but once you max it out, it's completely busted. It's like stealth. In
So,
Elder Scrolls.
And like, if you're curious about the name of my character, so he's actually a descendant of a character I made in Fallout New Vegas. So my Fallout New Vegas character, his name is General Poopsack, and he's an old man character.
Oh my god.
And so my Outer Worlds character, he's General Poopsack Jr. So he's just continuing the legacy of my
Also a
Fallout New
junior.
Vegas.
Of the poop sacks.
Of the
Yes.
Poop Sacks, yeah, very,
It's so weird you did
very
that. That's
famous.
why I named my guy Junior, because I made him in a previous Fallout game. That's really weird.
It's the way
It's
it's got to
hilarious.
be. You know what I mean? Got to
Yeah.
keep the lineage going.
All right, Mr. Weiss, if you are cognizant enough to explain what you watched
Hey,
this week.
before we get to me, I actually kind of wanted to go last. So,
Okay.
Oh, so we get to choose?
Ruby.
Hey. So
Hey, what do you watch lately, man?
let me steer it a different direction. You guys playing video games, watching stuff. I actually bought Kaylee a Kindle for her birthday, and I've never owned a Kindle. She got a Kindle, and I immediately was like jealous that I got it for her, so I bought one for myself.
Yeah.
So I've been like going through and like reading samples of books and stuff. And then ultimately we decided on both downloading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Oh yeah.
So, Tyler, you're gonna have to walk me through this, but
Yeah.
we synced the Kindles and essentially just read the same pages out loud together before we go to bed, and just read through chapter 1.
Yeah.
And then decided to start watching the Sorcerer's Stone to see how close chapter 1 and the beginning of the movie play out, and they are wildly different immediately.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of going through that. I'm actually just like browsing books, and the Kindle has a essentially Netflix for books where you can just pick one and start reading it. You don't have to pay for anything. It's pretty interesting. I wasn't familiar with that. If you guys read on Kindle, I also found they have like a social thing called Goodreads where we can see what each other
Okay.
what we're reading and
Yep.
what books you recommend. That's pretty neat. So I'm definitely gonna have to add you guys. Also maybe off podcast or something, I need you guys to recommend stuff that is required reading.
Jurassic Park. I just finished.
Okay.
Um,
I've been sitting on a copy of
the Dune
Halo.
saga.
Oh,
Oh.
what the fuck? I've been sitting on a copy of Halo: The Fall of Reach for like 2 months, waiting to read that shit.
I love that book.
Such a fucking great book.
Yeah.
Like that's one of those books that real quick story. Guy that used to be a manager, one of the previous jobs that I had worked for, he was at work reading it, and I was like, "You fucking nerd," and he was like, "Yeah, I mean, because he is a nerd, but at the same point in time, I mean, look, I'm a nerd, so at the same point in time, he was like, yeah, but there's a lot of story that's in there that's really interesting backstory for Master Chief," and I was like, okay, whatever. And so, seeing him multiple times up there reading it, and he was like, "Hey, how about this? After I finish this, I'll let you read it. You can read just the first part of it. If you don't like it, bring it back, and then everybody's cool." And I read the first 2 or 3 pages, and I didn't put it down. I read through the entire thing. It's incredible. It's a really, really good story. It's well worth the read. And even
It's
if you're
just
not,
good. It's just good sci-fi, even if you're not a Halo
incredibly
player.
good sci-fi. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're not, and that's the thing is like if you're a Halo player, you already have some investment into it. But if you're not a Halo player and you still get to be able to see the entirety of you get to read the entirety of the backstory, for basically how they created the Master Chief and just the program that he came from. It's very fucking interesting. Very interesting.
The Fall of
Nice.
Reach.
Well, you guys are talking about reading. I did have something that I was looking through some of the books that I have because I was just trying to find something to kind of read on the side, and I came across a collection that I had for Ms. Marvel, because you know that they were talking about doing a Ms. Marvel movie or series or something like that, and so I actually bought this. It's the 1 through 5, on there for the stories, and I got it because it was a college class I had taken. It was like I think it was called Feminist Critical Theory because I'm a liberal arts cuck, so I had to take that class. It was a great class, honestly. It was a lot of really cool stuff in there. And I was just going through that, and Ms. Marvel's really, really cool. It is very, very different from the usual superhero stuff that you get. And it's
cool.
not overtly, I guess preachy if you're of the mindset that something like that would be. It's just a really, really solid story told from the perspective of a character that you don't usually, you don't usually get a background like that. It's not, white guy saves world. So it's
Right.
it's different. It's interesting. It's cool. I recommend it. Especially in preparation for what appears to be a new thing coming out of the MCU. Another thing that I did watch, I forgot, I didn't really mention it up front. But I was on Netflix and I just clicked on like something that was like next up, and it was the Leah Remini Scientology documentary.
Oh yeah, it's really
and
good.
look, I just kind of clicked on it, and it was just kind of going in the background while I was doing some work stuff. I was doing something else, and I noticed that like I just kept looking back at it and paying attention and kind of catching bits and pieces of it, and I look up and I'm like several episodes in, and man, it is really, really good, and I'm kind of
very
sad
well
that I
made.
didn't. It is. It builds and builds. Like you start to introduce people, and then they kind of stick around, and then they revisit those people later on, and all the different parts about how Scientology is, how invasive they are, and how they don't, they hold a grudge. And it's crazy how much reach they have, and we talked a little bit about it.
Tax-free organization.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Like whenever they were celebrating at one of their annual events about how they had been granted tax-free status, it was like they had just.
Correct.
I say it. They actually said like we won the war. Like,
Yep.
like it's so obviously a just a bullshit money scheme.
Yeah, of course.
And but at the same time, they do a lot of real damage and fuck people up. And
Yeah, they do.
you get they talk a lot about because Leah Remini was I think she was either a second or third generation Scientologist, and it just makes you think about. Imagine if you were born into this essentially this cult, and that's where you grew up. You didn't get an education in a typical classroom setting. You don't know any of that. All you know is the church, and you spend the majority of your day studying and doing all this bullshit. And it's like, man, you start to feel bad for those people because it's not their fault. They didn't get a choice in it. And so when you hear them say crazy shit and, doing all the policy shit that L. Ron Hubbard was putting out, you go, well, they sound stupid, but that's all they know. It's hard to put yourself in that mindset of like, how do you not know? It's a completely different culture. So
yeah,
I would
and
recommend,
especially like
yeah,
one
say
that's like super widespread as they are, and as many members and as the amount of money that they actually have as a organization. It's really weird. It's really weird, place that they find themselves in.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't paint it in a positive light in any way.
Look, when you guys go missing in 2 weeks, I'll assume that they got you. So
Never said anything
Well,
bad. Just said it was weird.
Here's the thing that I want to do. So my name is Logan Henderson, and I want to go ahead and be put on your enemies list that I think that y'all are bullshit and stupid. So let me just go ahead and say that right now. I don't remember what they call it because I didn't give a shit that much about Scientology. But like not a defector, but a suppressant person.
Yeah.
A suppressive. Yeah, that's me. That'd be me. So fuck you guys. Y'all are weird. And you're a fucking virus on society.
You're just digging
right.
the hole. You're just digging the hole.
Keep it going.
All right. And you go ahead and send Charles over here with this fucking camera, I'll talk to him.
There you go.
Mr. Weiss.
So what I decided to do this week, I'd watched Casino last week, and it was the thing that kind of the impetus that made me want to bring up Goodfellas on this, and Goodfellas is kind of it's one of my favorite movies that's ever been made, and I know you guys have heard me say this before, but like legitimately of the movies that I've seen, and I've seen a shit ton of movies. But of the movies that I've seen, it's probably the one that I've seen the most.
Tyler,
in most repetitions.
Tyler, I would love if you would make like a top 10 list of movies. Like
I don't think he's physically capable of it.
I could make a
make
top
one.
150 movies. I mean,
No.
that's
Can
super
you just give us
doable.
just give us a rotating top? Give us a Google Docs spreadsheet that you put a top 10 and we check it periodically.
Yeah.
Shawshank, Goodfellas.
Okay, name five. Name five right now.
Name five right now. I can't because because I've been looking at movie titles just a second ago. So those are the movie titles that are running around in my brain, and every one of those movies, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great movie.
But you put in your top 5?
Do I know?
God. You'd put in your top 5? There's any movie you see, you're like, well, I could make a case for it.
No. But like the Stand By Me. Stand By Me is in my top 5. Okay. Goodfellas is in my top 5. Shawshank is in my top 5. Anyway, so what I did is this week I decided I'm going to focus on a single director, and I'm only going to watch films by that director. And we were already going to be doing Goodfellas today, so I decided that I was going to focus on the works of Mr. Martin Scorsese. So I watched Casino last week, and if you have not seen Casino, Austin, have you seen Casino?
No, I'm still thinking about buying it at the store.
Cool. Ruby, have you seen Casino?
Watch it.
I don't believe I have.
Okay. So it is it's very similar in a lot of respects to Goodfellas, in that the main two characters in the film, obviously the main character in the film is Henry Hill in Goodfellas. The other two characters that are the main characters in the film, other than Henry Hill,
Yeah, but De Niro gets top billing.
is De Niro and Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci, who won the Academy Award for this film, you get to see both of them play slightly different roles. More so for De Niro, less so for Joe Pesci in Casino. So this week I focused on I watched Shutter Island. So you guys have all seen Shutter Island?
Yes,
correct?
I love it.
And because I wanted to see I went through and anybody that said my favorite Martin Scorsese movie, and then they listed like Shutter Island was on a lot of people's lists, and they list the reasons why it's their favorite Scorsese movie, and because it presents itself differently than a lot of Scorsese stuff actually is presented. I really enjoyed it. The thing that I don't like about Shutter Island was the very first time that I watched Shutter Island, I had it spoiled for me because one of the very first trailers that ever came out for Shutter Island shows the reveal in it. And if you have seen Shutter Island, then you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen Shutter Island, then you have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you haven't seen Shutter Island, don't go looking at the movie trailers, because the big thing that the movie builds to is in the movie trailer, and the whole time you're waiting on that big thing to happen, and then when it happens, you're like, okay, cool, and then you automatically know exactly the rest of the movie. You kind of know how the movie's going to play out before you end up watching the movie. which fucking surprises me because, as much control as Martin Scorsese has about his films and like the production that goes on in the film, he doesn't actually have like trailer rights.
Yeah, well, trailers are more the marketing department, and
but still, like people like like for the movie Tenet, any of Christopher Nolan's films, he has trailer rights, so he knows like what's going to go in the trailer, and he knows how to be able to sell that specific movie based upon creating a trailer for it. And there's a lot of directors now that actually have the rights to be able to choose what actually goes into the trailer. And Scorsese just never had that. And to have one of, because Shutter Island plays out, it's kind of like a whodunit, and you're just trying to solve a mystery the entire time, and then the trailer gives away at the end of the mystery. So it's just kind of terrible. Really, really fun movie to watch. Leonardo DiCaprio, just on top of his game. Mark Ruffalo before he was the Hulk, and playing very important roles opposite each other. Ben Kingsley's in it. Super fun movie, with all these different cast of characters that are in there, and some twists and turns and ins and out, and it's a very good story. The second movie that I watched was Taxi Driver. And, that's on the top of like everybody's list of, oh shit, right, man, this is, some people say Mean Streets, but I think that they say Mean Streets because it's, it's De Niro and Harvey Keitel, and it's really the discovery of De Niro. Whereas, De Niro and Scorsese and Shipman, they've been working hand in hand since the beginning of both of their careers. And they've kind of, grown up like working together in one way or another up until, they just made The Irishman, and they got nominated for all those Academy Awards and shit. So, and you still have Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci and even like the Al Pacinos, but he worked with him later on. But it's all of those guys kind of working together to be able to create this thing inside of the Scorsese universe. So going back to Taxi Driver is an incredibly ambitious film. Just for like what it represented and the time that it actually represented it. And whenever you go back and you watch now, there's still a lot of that film that you can't really like. The whole thing with Jodie Foster, and Jodie Foster was like fucking 14 years old when this thing was filmed, and you have to kind of watch it from a. Do what now?
It's like when we did American.
So you kind of have to look at it from a different standpoint of this is like I think it's 1974 or something to that effect. So, but just everything that goes into it, and the acting is incredible, and just Robert De Niro, his ability to be able to go from being like the super sweet kind of lovable dude to the kind of weird dude to complete and utter fucking psycho. And he's really good at being able to play all different aspects to that. And you can see it like later on in his film career, he kind of plays all those different pieces. Not so much so in the movies that we get to see him make today, because now he's kind of like the lovable grandfather type figure. Although he still does have some really interesting pieces that kind of pop up, here and again, where he gets to be a hard ass or a gangster, or, even in shit like, Analyze This and Meet the Fockers and Meet the Parents. And
they should make The Godfather Part 4, and Robert De Niro should play the new Don.
Well, you can't, because Robert De Niro plays Vito Corleone in Godfather 2. And so...
He plays Vito in 2? No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he does.
Does he?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
So,
let me look this up.
Look it up. He won an Oscar for it.
He
Keep
does.
going.
It's very... Yeah.
It's like one of the things that he's known for. So
it's Al Pacino, isn't it?
No, Al Pacino's in 1 and 2. He's Michael Corleone.
Thinking of Michael Corleone.
Yeah. So you get to see like the Robert De Niro, and I guess, man, I legitimately, I could do a full blown Robert De Niro podcast, just talking about the his works alone, because the shit that he has done. Everything from The Great, that is, Goodfellas and Taxi Driver, and even things he didn't do with Scorsese. Brian De Palma, wins the Oscar for Godfather 2, and so you get to see a lot of that work all the way up until the more recent modern shit that he's done. He's had a very broad career, and been the actor for a bunch of different generations.
I feel like as he's gotten older, he's kind of gotten into that. What's a good example? Like maybe Morgan Freeman, maybe even Al Pacino, like the older actor who's just kind of doing stuff.
Yep.
Where the performances are a lot less inspired than they
Correct.
used to be.
I agree.
Like when you go back and watch, like you mentioned, like Taxi Driver, like that, it's almost like it's a different actor, like with what he's putting into some of that stuff. As
Well,
an early
he
actor,
was a different actor because, I mean, shit. I mean, look at his acting credits. So he has 125 different acting credits that are in there, and everything. I guess it's probably realistically like right around the time that he starts making the Analyze This and everything like that, and where he's got a little bit of like a funny side to it, and you kind of get to see that. But I mean, I guess that was even still there, like in Rocky and Bullwinkle days. So you kind of have, the being able to poke fun at yourself and be able to, and I think that probably a lot of the stuff that comes after that is not nearly as, nearly as Scorsese or
and I'm not trying to disrespect him because he's a fucking legend.
Fucking legend.
Clear.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to disrespect him at all. It's just like when you watch stuff like even like The Irishman, it's just kind of bittersweet because you get the sense that this is probably the last time we're going to see, maybe Scorsese, De Niro, and Joe Pesci all together in a movie.
Probably, and that again, like they started their careers together. So, I mean, you go back and you watch, like, from Mean Streets to, Taxi Driver to, they all work together in Raging Bull. And, I mean, there's just so much of that back and forth of them being able to, like, weave their careers together. And, did you watch The Irishman?
I finally did, yeah. I watched it a while ago.
And look,
I don't have 4 hours.
That's my thing. It's good. It's just really slow. It's a very slow. It's a good thing that it's on Netflix. I fell asleep twice while watching that. You know,
and the thing is like it's not like, and we'll get into this when we get into Goodfellas, but I kind of felt that way watching this. Like the first kind of like 30 minutes or so of Goodfellas is
really, man. I'm gonna hard disagree with you there, but
like if anything, that's like what draws you in immediately. Yeah. Like the world building is absolutely.
I mean, I don't know. I guess if you've seen enough of these, what do you?
I was gonna try. I was steering. This is me steering the conversation. So before we even get into like Goodfellas and stuff like that. The other movie that I wanted to be able to talk about, and the reason that I wanted to talk about it is because it's a departure from this talking about Robert De Niro.
Boy, I know where we're going.
And I watched The Departed. I watched that like 3 hours ago now, and that right there,
awesome.
and that's another one of those films that it's like, oh shit, it's the best Scorsese movie that's ever been made, and I disagree. Because there's a lot of really, really great things that happen in there, and you get fucking. I mean, just it's not peak Matt Damon, but it's fucking great Matt Damon.
Mm-hmm.
It's not peak Leonardo DiCaprio, but it's great Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's goddamn sure not peak. Screaming at the top of your lungs, being super fucking weird Jack Nicholson. Because there is a lot of goddamn really, really weird Jack Nicholson that takes place inside of The Departed, from the whipping the fucking dildo out at the movie theater to, I mean, there's just, he's super fucking weird throughout the entire thing. And even Scorsese's like, yeah, he was just basically playing this character the entire time that he was filming, and they only had him for like a week, and they had to just run through a bunch of shit with Jack Nicholson, and he was kind of just like a loose wire out there on the set. So, but look, it's a great film. God damn, it's a great film. It's fun to be able to watch. But the way everything kind of ties itself together at the end, and It feels very influenced by some of the other directors that I really, really enjoy watching. Borrows a lot from old westerns, and there's a lot of shit that's actually in there that's really, really well done. But still, after having watched these films, my favorite Scorsese film that's ever been made, and probably the one film that has really influenced the way that gangster movies are seen and made, is Goodfellas. It is 100% Goodfellas. And to be able to, you talk about like the beginning of a movie. The beginning of this movie,
the very
beginning,
the teaser beginning, like that. Yeah, that's a great way to start it. It's just after that, I just kept finding myself, and maybe it's it could be just because I've seen the movie, and it is whatever. But I just found myself kind of getting out of it and coming back in and having a hard time paying attention, whereas I don't normally have that with with what I would consider to be like top tier movies. And I guess I just kind of forgot that it was like that. Or again, I don't know if it was because I've seen it or what, but clearly you disagree with me, and that's fine.
Well, and the reason why I'm going to disagree with that, and look, I get it, like the whole Henry Hill as a kid, and then kind of the introduction of him as a young adult, and then you're supposed to believe that at some point in time, whenever Henry Hill is obviously in his 30s, that he's 21. So there's a lot of, stuff that you have to be able to get past right there. But just to be able to talk a couple, about a couple of the scenes that are in the film. The opening sequence to the film is probably one of my favorite opening sequences ever because of the way that it starts out. Jimmy, Tommy, Henry driving down the road. Everything's banging around inside the car, and you're like, did they fucking hit something? Did they run over something on the road? And they have this like look at each other. And I guess the very first time that you watch this film, and Rubyen, I know this is kind of the perspective that you kind of had on this is, going back and kind of watching this film again for the first time, and that reveal of what is actually taking place. And whenever they stop, they pull out, and they're like, holy shit. And they go to open the trunk, and you are greeted with this incredible violence immediately, first thing.
Yeah, and that's still like definitely shock value.
Oh my god.
Like and just how nonchalantly he fucks that guy up immediately.
Oh yeah. Stab, 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 stab. Shot, shot.
Yeah, so Kaylee and I watched this movie together, and so she has a thing about knives in movies.
Oh wow! Okay.
So she doesn't like knives.
I
right?
bet that was rough for her to watch.
And it's very jarring. It's just immediate, right? And so she also
violent.
She also didn't know, to an extent, even what this movie was. I was just like, hey, you want to watch Goodfellas? She's like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. Goodfellas. Right. And then that's the opening to the movie. But what's funny though is, like you said, they're like, oh, did we hit something? Is that a flat? What's going on?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking immediately, I was like, oh yeah, it's definitely a guy in the trunk, and I haven't seen this opening. They pull over and she goes, are they about to do a trunk shot? And I was like, I don't know. And she goes, wait, is this a Tarantino movie? And then I was like, no, this came before Tarantino. And then, they go to the trunk. She goes, no, they're doing a trunk shot. Oh, okay. I guess they're not doing a trunk. And just starts stabbing. And she was like, oh my God. Like she immediately, it was terrible.
Robert De Niro jumps in there, fucking shoots him like 4 times.
Blast him, yeah.
Slams the trunk closed. And then Henry Hill says, as far back as I can remember, I wanted to be a gangster. And then it immediately goes into the music. And that's how I knew that I was going to fucking love this film. It's one of the most solid fucking openings. I love it so much.
That's how you do a teaser opening.
Yeah, of course.
It's amazing. Yeah, my problem really is just kind of the kid Henry part. It's just like, it goes on a little long.
Like the scene
I get
where
what they're doing. I get what they're doing.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure, I get that.
Building up
and I'm willing to say
history.
that I think it's entirely just because I've already seen the movie several times.
I got you.
I think that's entirely what it is. I don't.
There are moments though whenever like Henry gets the shit beat out of him by his dad, and he's reading him the thing. You haven't been to school, and then he says, "For a month," and then just starts wailing on him with the fucking belt. And I mean, there's scenes like that throughout the entire thing that you can kind of pinpoint, like those are integral moments throughout his life. The guy bleeding out on Tuddy's front porch, and he goes and gets all the aprons and brings them out there, and Tuddy's like, "You're a fucking jerk. You just wasted 8 fucking aprons on this guy."
Yeah.
And, why would you give a shit about that?
Yeah. And I mean, there's so much. But you're right. What you're saying is correct. You get the real thing rolling whenever it starts. You get Henry Hill as an adult, and the first time that we get to see Henry Hill as an adult is the introducing the gangsters, and there is a specific gangster name that if you've seen the movie more than once, you probably know the specific gangster name that. It's one. Man, I've said it probably 100,000 times throughout my entire life. Whenever they're introducing all the characters, Jimmy 2 times, and he says, "I'm gonna go get the papers. And like I've said that line hundreds of thousands of times throughout my life.
I've said and heard that line a billion times.
I'm gonna go get the papers. Get the papers. If somebody says something about papers,
while you're
I
on
always
the
say
topic of that, while they're introducing them, they introduce a guy named, I think is pronounced Michael Franchise, and he actually has a YouTube channel, The Real Guy.
Yes.
And if you haven't watched that, it's really,
watched
really
it.
interesting. He is really, really cool. He eventually, got out of it, and he's never like ratted on anybody or anything like that. But
it's not what Henry Hill did.
Yeah. Well,
Henry Hill did the one thing. He did the 2 things you're not supposed to do.
yeah, you can't do that. And
never rat on your friends.
But Michael,
always keep your mouth shut.
And he's just like a mentioned, like just tossed in there, type thing. But if you haven't seen it, you should look him up because he also reviews gangster movies and will mention things like, was this kind of what it was like? Was it not? If they reference real people, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I knew him. I work with him. He was a really cool guy."
I'd be interested in what his take is of this
weird,
film.
The internet age where you can get like gangsters from the mafia
on
YouTube telling you about what shit was like in movies that you've seen. Very cool, very interesting dude. I would check it out. Just making that reference, Michael Franchise.
Well, and also in preparation for this podcast, I went back through and I watched a whole bunch of different documentaries out, like the real Henry Hill, and I can tell you, the people that are like the people, like Paul Vario, the Paulie. He was kind of like that.
Was it Paulie or was it Peter?
But he was played way nicer than he actually was, because he was he was a goddamn monster in real life. And Tommy was built like a brick shit house, and he wasn't like this short stocky dude, but he was like, he would always pop off of the mouth, and everybody talks about like the whole Tommy sequence where funny guy, it's the thing that is been made fun of 100 million times on so many different shows, and just that sequence right there, and you kind of get to understand the menace that is, Tommy's character, and that I don't give a fuck if he's your friend. I don't give a fuck if you've done jobs together. I don't give a fuck. None of that matters. If he feels like that he has been threatened at any particular point in time, he's going to fuck that person up. And, even somebody like Henry Hill, who was like, part of the gang, but not really part of the gang. He was Irish, and, he's playing around in this Italian mob space, and, he's, half Irish, half Italian, but playing around in this Italian mob space, and you have a guy that's Tommy, and he knows, like, the brutal shit that Tommy has done and been through and everything like that. And so for him, whenever Tommy is like, how the fuck am I funny? And they have that, like, very serious moment there, and he's like, almost starts to try to backpedal a little bit. Yeah. He's like, you're just
The
You're
way you
funny.
talk.
Yeah. Some
Forget
of the
about
things
it.
that you
Oh.
say are funny.
Oh, I almost
And,
got him. Almost had him.
But you know,
that's where you get the ridiculous laugh meme. that you
Yes.
get seeing
Oh
going
yes.
I couldn't tell the whole
because
time,
that whole breaking of that moment is he was like, "Oh, I almost fucking had you," and then they just start playing back, "Oh, you are a fucking funny guy," and then you get to see what actually happens like later on, whenever it's not somebody that he's super close with, like Henry, in the interaction moment with Spider, and Spider is like, Tommy, why don't you go fuck yourself, and then Jimmy Burke. Or Jimmy, what was his last name in the film? Conrad, I think is his last name in the film.
Conway.
Right? Conway. His real name is Jimmy Burke. He's based off of an actual guy named Jimmy Burke, but they changed his last name, for legal reasons. And Jimmy's like, poking at Tommy, and he's like, I can't believe this, you're gonna take this, the world has changed, and if this is what Tommy's gonna take that sitting down, and he fucking pumps him in the chest and just shoots Spider right there.
R.I.P. Spider.
Yeah, and that's the kind of person that fucking that Tommy is, and these are the type of gangsters that he hung out with, and the way that Henry Hill actually talks about him, these people like in real life, like he felt like he lived every single day of his in fear, and you kind of get that a little bit throughout the film, but you also kind of get that he enjoys the fuck out of all of this because he kind of does. Yeah, and whenever you talk
it's interesting how. And from what I've researched, it's very much how it was. Where you'd be sitting around and everyone's smoking, playing cards or something like that. Someone says something that offended somebody else, and then it gets real tense. And then like next thing you know, they're watching the game and it's all forgotten. And then one day it just goes too far and someone gets shot.
Oh
it's wild.
Well, and or there's ulterior motives, and there's been a conversation about whacking this guy and this, that, and the other the entire time, and they're buddies to each other's faces, just waiting on the prime opportunity just to be able to kill somebody. We get to see that play out multiple times throughout the entire film. Just not great guys, and the story of Henry Hill, it's. You get to see multiple facets of the film through the eyes of Henry Hill, but there's the secondary person that's in here that becomes the second narrator that we get to see, so that we get to see things from her perspective, and that's his wife Karen, and her introduction into the film, and the cross section. So you get kind of Karen's first introduction where she gets stood up and then she's all upset, and then they go find Henry, and he's like, "Oh, I thought it was next week." And then you get the actual introduction of Karen into the film, which is taken to it's referred to as the Copa shot. It is over 3.5 minutes of steady cam footage, single shot through the film, where they take them through
down the stairs and then through the kitchen.
Oh my God,
it's really cool.
It is that shot that whenever I was, this movie came out in 90, I would have turned 14, so I was 13, maybe 13 and a half whenever I saw this movie. And it was at that point, watching that shot and going all the way through the kitchen, the just levels of respect and adoration that he gets from everybody. The maitre d' sees him come through, and he's like, oh, points at him, yells at somebody. They go get him a fucking table. They bring a table fucking flying through into the room. They put him down front and center, and they get introduced, from, oh, this is a bottle of champagne, and this is from Tommy right over here. And they sit down. I mean, just to be able to impress a date, it's probably one of the most impressive, like first, technically, not even really first date, but first dates ever. Just that whole idea of,
if I could do that, I would do that every night.
Every fucking night. What are you talking about?
I'd be big dick swinging every single night, man.
Karen looks at him and is like, what do you do? He's like, I'm in construction. Yeah, okay.
I'm a union contractor.
I wanna take a second to ask Austin. Have you seen this before we watched it this week?
Yeah, I saw it fuck, I don't even remember the last time I saw it. Most of the movie was incredibly almost new to me because it's been so long since I've seen it the first time.
Oh, real quick, tell me what you enjoyed about it, what you disliked about it, and if of the things that you remember, did you have a change of opinion on anything?
So the main thing I took away from the first time I watched it, and you guys may feel completely different than I do, but the main thing I took away is that I didn't much care for the end of the movie. And when I say the end of the movie, I mean specifically when it becomes him becoming like, a drug addict, and he is like always like his nerves are like on a high. He thinks the cops are always after him. The helicopter's flying overhead. He's like, cheating on his wife. He's buying all these drugs and he's trying to sell them. Even the first time when I watched the movie, I don't care for that whole sequence, like that whole ending piece, because
you've never done cocaine.
Right. Now,
See?
the thing is, I mean, I appreciate it for story's sake. Like, I don't hate the movie for doing that. I like movies, like gangster movies that keep up that gangster, I guess, feel, like that 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s feel. But that whole end part of the movie felt very 1970s, and that just, I don't know why, but that takes like the gangster out of it for me. Like, they stopped wearing the suits.
Because it was.
Yeah, it's the intro to Coke for the mafia. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing where the old heads.
It goes right
the
into
old
like
heads
Scarface.
were still doing the.
It goes right into Scarface, which is
well, it's the 80s.
Well, that's what I was gonna actually reference, is that there's a way to not completely shift the tone of the movie, so to speak. I think that's what you're getting at.
Correct.
Because that's why I like Scarface as probably one of maybe my top one, because it literally just builds and builds and builds and builds until it gets to like the craziest shit, like the craziest guy, and we already covered Scarface on one of our earliest podcasts, and that's one of the things that's so good about it. The say hello to my little friend scene, like you just see him start off as kind of a piece of shit, but just like a low-rate thug, and then he becomes like this fucking wild guy, and it's like, that's the kind that I like. So I can kind of see where you're coming from a little
you're
bit.
Also
not like Henry bitching out, becoming an informant,
I mean, that
Well,
too,
you're also
like,
talking about a super low-level player versus like a drug kingpin, which, you get Scarface, the drug kingpin that's in the multi-million-dollar mansion, and then you've got Henry Hill that's been in and out of prison, and he has a nice house and he's making a little bit of money off of the cocaine, but he's having to share a bunch of that money with Jimmy and his guys, because he's trying to keep everything nice and copacetic and keep Paulie from being able to know about what's actually going on, because the mafia was not into selling cocaine at that particular point in time. So he's trying to hide all of this shit and hide all of the drug use and do all of that stuff. So he's a very small fry in this whole cocaine game at that particular point in time.
I mean, that was all interesting enough, but it's the tone shift for me, man.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like, I was in it for like the 1950s, 60s gangster vibes. I was like, I love this shit. Like the suits, the Tommy guns, like the whole 9 yards, the Baba da Boopy, fucking kill you, son of a bitch. Like the whole 9 yards. I love it.
Yeah.
And then you get to the fucking last fourth of the movie and he's just coked out the whole time. And he's just like selling coke, cheating on his wife. And I'm like, when did this become Scarface? Oh my God. It just changes. And like, I like the movie. I think it's great. It honestly is. It's one of my favorites, like that I've ever seen. And that's just the only thing I don't like about it. It's just that whole end piece. But overall, still a great film. I agree with the IMDb rating. I think it was like 8.6 when I looked at it. I was like, yeah, that's respectable. It's probably what I would give it to.
It's pretty high for IMDb.
9 and some change for me.
Is that what it is? Or is that what you give it?
That's what I give it. Yeah.
Oh, I have The Godfather Part 2 pulled up. What am I doing?
So, Rubio,
yes,
you've been
sir.
real quiet because you've been slacking.
I'm slacking.
Yeah, so this was your first time to watch it.
Essentially, yeah. So, I mean, growing up, with Goodfellas, I would catch it on cable, 5 minutes into the movie, here and there. So like this is my first full viewing of the movie. I was familiar with the context. I was familiar with the characters. Just the pop culture that this movie created, though, throughout references in every other TV show and movie, but watching it for the first time, it's the most Tarantino movie I've ever seen that is not made by Tarantino.
All right.
Okay.
That's my takeaway. And again, ultimately, watching it with Kaylee, she even asked me 30 minutes into the movie, she goes, "Is this not a Tarantino movie?" Like, even after the trunk shot, when I said, "No, this isn't Tarantino," she forgot and said, this isn't a Tarantino movie? Like,
It's gotta be.
Yeah, it
Come
just kept coming up. I don't know. I really like the movie a lot, too. I agree with you guys that I think this is kind of a pinnacle of American culture. Just the way that the movie is shot, the way that it's written, the way the characters perform. I mean, this is kind of and I didn't take film class or anything, but this should almost be required viewing.
I agree.
For anyone.
Yeah, and it's such a great encapsulation of what it was really like. Like, some of the videos that I've seen from past mobsters and gangsters who were in it say that, Scorsese does some of the most accurate depictions of, what the world was like, how the people were, super violent or whatever, ultra violent, and
so he grew up during that time, and he got to see these things as a kid growing up, in New York City. Whenever during the 40s and the 50s, and to be able to see this kind of thing get birthed, and what it ultimately became. Like he was able to witness all of that, and which is why he's so good at being able to bring that to the screen and kind of represent what that life was really like. I mean, apart from the killing just kind of that just becomes almost like secondary to it was this boys club that was very gangster, and we just do whatever the fuck we want to, and it's not like this thing that was presented in The Godfather. The Godfather presents the mafia as a completely different thing than what Goodfellas presents the mafia as. What you get in Godfather is it's this organization. It's about respect. It's about the gaining the respect of your people and doing the right thing, and basically
a made man. And
yeah. But the thing that you have to understand about Godfather is that the mafia had a lot of influence on the way that the Godfather was actually made. Not once throughout the entire film do you actually hear the word mafia, because that was one of the things that was petitioned and brought up to the film review board, and they were not allowed to use that film inside that term inside of the film because it was slanderous. There's so much that actually goes on in the background in the making of of The Godfather that you don't really get to see the way that it is. You get to see like a dramatized version of it, but with this right here, we actually get to see, because we have firsthand knowledge. You have the story from Henry Hill, and then being told by Nicholas Pileggi. Nicholas Pileggi is the guy who actually wrote the book Wise Guy, on which the movie The Goodfellas is based off of. And he spent hundreds of hours, interviewing Henry Hill and interviewing all of the people in the lead up to being able to release the book of Wise Guy. And then, Scorsese, again, being able to, grow up and be involved in that. It's just two people that kind of fit in the same wheelhouse at the same particular point in time. Take that script, take that book, turn that into a film, and it's a very accurate portrayal of what being in the mafia was like. It was a fear-driven organization. It was fear and money. And whenever they're done with a thing, being able to bleed it for however much money that they're able to bleed it from, then they burn the fucking place down. And they claim it on their insurance. And they do that not just with buildings, but also with the human life and the human collateral that are just used throughout the entire film to be able to get a thing done so that you can make some more money. It's crazy.
And it's all short term, because no one's story in that ended well. Like, especially once you got to a certain level. I mean, most of the guys either ended up dead or in prison or killed themselves or overdosed or something wild.
Well, a lot of them were killed
quote, unquote,
because
missing,
of yeah.
You know,
Well, I would say ultimately the character that got the kind of the best experience in it was Vinny in jail. I mean, he got to spend his remaining days with all the crew that he kind of built up.
Yeah.
Living in this like kind of perfectly secured prison area where he just got to cook food for a small group of guys.
It's so hilarious that and you know, whenever they're talking about, oh, that's an exaggeration, and then people will talk to like the old guards during the 50s and 60s, you know, late 50s, early 60s, and you know, in the prison system, and that's exactly how the fucking, you know, those made mafia members, that's how they lived their existence in prison, while everybody else was doing everything else that was super difficult. And
they were having a good ass time. I don't remember what movie I watched. It was I think it was maybe one of like the Laurie movies I watched a while back, where one of the guys went back to talk to someone that was like, you know, had connections, and he was like, I got to go meet him in prison, and they were just out there playing cards and like going out to the beach and shit, and they're like, the prison itself was like oceanfront property. Yeah, and it's like they're having a good ass time, you know. And so you're like, what? You know, it's wild what how much power and influence. And like you mentioned, how you know, they had a lot of say in how like The Godfather was made, and they were really ingrained in Hollywood, like big time. Like they were funding a lot of the movies and bankrolling them, and the same way they would do like politicians or anyone that actually had any kind of power and influence. The mafia was usually involved. You know, and you know,
it's a good thing that whenever they did finally decide to make this book into a movie, that the days of the mafioso family, they had pretty much died away. I mean, look, there's still some of that exists out there today, but it is way less prevalent since, you know, the Sammy the Bull Gravano and all these other guys that, you know, they turned state's evidence, and then whenever the government really started to crack down on the mafia and kind of split it apart and turn each other against each other and do all of that, and basically getting the mafia out of the involvement with the casinos and making Las Vegas way more family friendly, as opposed to just being this, you know, sex and gambling and drugs haven that just existed. Yeah. And, you know, to see some of, you know, during the 90s, that shit just, it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same as what it was, you know, in the late 70s, early 80s. Damn sure in that period wasn't the same as what it was in the 60s and the 50s and the 40s, and then just going back. That's when you had all the Al Capones and all the fucking, which, you know, Robert De Niro actually played Al Capone in Untouchables. You get to see all these different versions of, you know, gangster stories that are out there. And I think that we just happen to step in at the beginning, the story that kind of leads into the beginning of the end for, you know, organized crime families. It's, you know, especially the Italian mob. It's crazy. It really is. I love the film. Love the story.
One thing I want to ask about too with some of these characters, are all of the characters in the movie, and like, you know, the guy with the massive caterpillar eyebrows, the Simpsons mafia.
Yeah.
They're all just played off of these characters, right?
100% correct. Yes.
Okay. Because the Simpsons mafia, I swear, like not Vinny, but who's the bigger dude? Was it Paul, the guy that he got paid
Paulie.
From? Yeah, Paul. Yeah, Paulie or Peter, Paulie.
Yeah.
The whole character set is literally just the Simpsons characters.
Of course it is.
And did you guys catch throughout this movie the multiple non-actors that were in the movie that kept looking at the camera?
They call those gangsters, and they would just, they just got legit gangsters to be able to play parts in this film.
Not even that, but just the parts like, you know, like you said with the going back into the kitchen, walking through the kitchen, just all of the. It's a real kitchen. Those are real workers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were just like, oh shit. Oh, like looking at the camera just multiple times, and like scenes with some of the kid actors were looking into the camera. There's even a scene where, you know, Tommy's mom who I believe is actually Scorsese's sister or
No,
or
Scorsese's
mom.
mom.
That's
Yeah.
his real mom. Okay.
His mom. She's a gem of a human being.
There's a scene where she's talking, and it's almost as if she has no script. She's just being a mom.
Yeah.
And and she looks into the camera too.
A lot of that is ad-libbed. A lot of that
Yeah,
is ad-libbed.
I caught a lot of that. And another thing that I was gonna bring up. Oh fuck! What was I just about to say to that? Man, just keep going because I just lost it. But
No, man. Like, legitimately, there's so many non-character characters throughout the entire film, and and I think that it's that there's so much spontaneity and a lot of the lines that Joe Pesci says throughout the entire thing. I mean, there's an idea of the way that they want to be able to go in the script. I love his excessive use of the word fuck. It is one of my favorite examples of the multitude of ways that you can use fuck to be able to make a point. And he is just I'm
a fucking good shot. I don't know. What do you want me to say? I'm a good shot. I fucking shot
him.
him.
He's a fucking craftsman whenever it comes to using the English language to be able to make a point. And whenever he can't make the point that he wants to be able to make using the English language, he just fucking kills them. To kind of bring back to one of my favorite scenes in the film, and one of my favorite lines in the film is the Billy Bat sequence. So to kind of give it a little bit of backstory on that thing in particular, the club that they're actually in, and there's a line that Joe Pesci's Tommy says specifically that they used to steer him towards the Oscar race, and it's what allowed him to be able to win the Best Supporting Actor Oscar for this film. In that particular sequence, it takes place in in Henry's club that he owned, and he built this club based upon the money that he made from the one heist that he ended up sharing the money with Paulie, and he got their split, and so he used some of that money to be able to make his club, and it's at his club, and that was one of his attempts to be able to get away from the mafia, and all that did is it just gave him a place to be able to come hang out. He had a legit club, restaurant that was making money, and then all the gangsters came up there and it became their hangout spot. And then they ended up doing to it what they kind of do with most places, just completely fuck it up. And it's that moment where he has the confrontation with Billy Bats, the whole go get your fucking shine box, that moment. Tommy's pissed off, comes back, and then they confront him right there. They get him super drunk, and they're obviously gonna kill him right there. And then the line that he says to Henry is, I didn't want to get blood on your floor. And he the murder that he just committed, the murder that they thought they had just committed was secondary to the, oh fuck Henry, I didn't want to get blood on your floor. I'm sorry about that. He was way more upset about that than he was about the guy that he just killed.
You don't give a shit.
Well, no, but it's because of the guy that they killed, Billy Bats. It's because of the guy that they killed in Henry's place. And when word got around that was something that actually had happened, that's what ended up being Tommy's demise. You can't fuck with a made man. You can't fuck with the guy that is untouchable. You can't touch him. And then they touched him, and then that was the undoing of Tommy. And just the way that they present the deaths of everybody in the film. You talk about thinking it's a Quentin Tarantino film. You even get a Sam Jackson in there. I love Sam Jackson's character that he plays.
He's in there for 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, and then gets fucking shot in the back of the head, and his face explodes all over his bed.
Yeah,
and that's craziness.
There he goes.
Yeah. And that's kind of the same way that they end up taking a Tommy out as well, is that the whole shot in the back of the head and the blood that fucking sprays all over the room, and he just collapses right there in his face. Just incredible cinematography, so much.
I love that scene too, where ultimately he's gonna go be a made man, and they open the door to the lights off with nobody there to celebrate, and he already knows. He goes, fuck,
fuck,
yeah,
and then that's it. It's the end of it. And then
he already knew.
Jimmy's reaction to all of that shit happening, he gets the word and he's inside the phone booth and he fucking smashes the damn thing off the phone booth and then knocks the phone booth over. I mean, yeah, man, it's just, and like all the fucking people that Jimmy had gotten killed or Jimmy had killed himself. And if you look about like who Jimmy Burke was in real life, he was way, way worse than they ended up playing him in the film. Way worse.
You know what they say. Jimmy was the kind of guy that rooted for the bad guys in movies or whatever.
Oh yes, yeah.
I got that impression as well. That seems like the kind of thing he would do.
And another like moment in the film that has always stood out to me, it's the panning across of all of the people and the dead bodies, and then finding the guy in the freezer, and then them doing the whole garbage truck and the body tumbling out of there, and the whole thing is being played to like what song that is, right? It's the back half of Layla, Derek and the Dominoes.
Layla.
Yeah, but you don't get any of the Layla part. You get all of just the guitar solo. Oh my God! So just an incredibly powerful scene, just the way that it's all laid out.
The way everything comes together in that scene really is.
Oh yeah,
cool. It's really cool.
The other thing I kind of wanted to mention that I just in my research I found really, really interesting. That Robert De Niro was actually nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor in a Film for 1991. This came out in 1990, so the 1991 Oscars. But he was not nominated for this film. So Joe Pesci wins for Best Supporting Actor. Robert De Niro does not win for Best Actor, but he is nominated, and he is nominated for a film that I actually brought up last week, which is Awakenings, starring Robin Williams. Right. And it's really, really interesting film, really good film. But of the two portrayals, I mean, I can understand why the Academy would be like, oh, Awakenings. They don't want to glorify the whole violence aspect to it, because it would be super weird if Robert De Niro got that instead of Awakenings and Joe Pesci. They knew that Joe Pesci was going to end up winning for his portrayal of Tommy. Just very, very, very interesting that Awakenings and this movie came out in the same year. But it still wasn't like the winner of all the things. The winner chicken dinner for the entire Oscars that year was a movie that I don't know if you guys have ever seen, Dances with Wolves.
Oh no, not since VHS.
Kevin Costner, yeah, not since VHS.
Yeah,
and it's one of those movies that was really, really good one time.
Yeah, I could see
and that. I've seen that movie twice, and it is definitely not. I mean, shit. If the movies like that were up for Best Picture that year, if shit, man,
I mean, there weren't.
Yeah, so Dances with Wolves won cinematography. Kevin Costner won for Best Director, obviously, because Dances with Wolves wins for Best Picture. But I mean, like, of all of the movies that were released that year, Awakenings, Goodfellas, Ghost was on there. Godfather Part 3 is on that list, and Dances with Wolves. Goodfellas is by far
the best of those.
Easily the best.
Close.
You'd have to talk to some of the ladies that are out there. Ghost might be a pretty top contender.
Ghost is so silly.
It's such a bad movie. No, I shouldn't say that. It's a fun movie to watch. I've seen it a whole bunch of times. If you want to see Patrick Swayze Ghost, that doesn't make any sense. You should definitely watch it. It's super, super fun.
Yeah. I don't know. One thing I can appreciate out of this movie too was some of the color grading that they did throughout the movie. Yeah. There's something about film movies versus a lot of the movies we get now, just incredibly enhanced and incredibly perfectly CG'd and perfectly lit, but in movies like this where it's actually shot on film and they do a lot of natural lighting, which I would assume is natural lighting, but probably there's some Hollywood magic happening even there. I just I don't want to be the old guy, but like, they don't make them like they used to.
Well, yeah, I mean, they still can make them like they used to. It just takes a lot more work, and you have to be a lot more creative to be able to give a lot of the flaw that is film and be able to bring that into the digital age. Ryan Johnson played around with a lot of that in the movie Knives Out. I spoke pretty extensively about that right there, but
right.
Most of the people that are out there right now, you're absolutely correct. It just doesn't have the same feel or look as what a good movie shot on film does. And there's a specific style and sensibility that Scorsese gets. And let's see, his guy's name is, I think it's like Michael. Oh shoot! Here, I'll pull his Ballhouse. That's his DP, and worked with him for a bunch of different years. And they have a really good give and take, and you can kind of see it as they grew together through the filming that they actually did. I really enjoy the way that this film is shot. And after having gone back and watched, I mean, just over the last couple of days, a lot of Scorsese films that are out there, they're very consistent. They're very consistent, and even though the films are wildly different in wildly different directions, and not all of them are focused on violence. Although the ones that I saw, other than Shutter Island, I mean, they are some very incredibly violent films. The Departed specifically, there's some just outstanding fucking violence that's in that particular film. The scene where oh shit, what's his name? Fucking, they drop him off the top of the goddamn the building in The Departed is just it's a hard thing to watch. Martin Sheen being dropped off the top of a building and fucking splatter whenever he hits the ground. Hard thing to be able to watch. And
is Scorsese, so like I'm familiar with him, right?
Sure.
But I've not studied him in the sense of like, how I love Tarantino stuff. But I'm going through, and I'm just surprised at the amount of movies that I've seen from him that I didn't really necessarily realize was him.
Right.
So give me he has a massive catalog. I mean, just not even aware that he did, Gangs of New York and The Aviator. Like I'm trying to pull up the full list here.
Gangs of New York is one of those that I've seen that a whole bunch of times as well, and it's for early introduction to Leonardo DiCaprio and just the fucking cast of characters that actually plays out in there. But there's a very specific actor that I would love to be able to spend a little time, talking, My Left Foot and There Will Be Blood and
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis, man, just what a
So
fucking
the mysterious Daniel Day-Lewis.
I don't think he's mysterious. I just think that he does things his way. And if you don't like the way that he does things, then just don't watch his fucking movies. And he doesn't give a shit one way or the other. And
a true artiste.
Yeah, and that's kind of why, I'm just utterly fascinated. Do I think that he is the best actor of all time? No. Do I think he's a complete and utter fucking nutcase? Yeah, of course I do. Because he is. But for the part that you get from him that plays itself out in that movie as Bill the Butcher is fucking, it's crazy. It's outstanding.
I don't know.
Gangs
I think
of
you
New
can
York.
make a case as him being the best actor. It's so subjective,
Well,
and it depends
yeah,
on what
I
you
know.
compare it up against.
If you want to talk about like his ability to lose himself into a role, yeah, I mean, his portrayal of Lincoln in the movie Lincoln.
Yeah.
Is it a great film? I don't know. Is it an accurate representation of what happened? I couldn't tell you. Does it feel very real? You goddamn right it does.
I bet that's exactly what Lincoln was like.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Very convincing.
Super convincing. Yeah.
I'm about to shift gears on you real quick and just say, this whole time we're talking about this movie and nobody has brought up Goodfellas from the Animaniacs.
So
is that just me?
Well, it's that thing that makes fun of
That's what I'm getting as, like, you know, I told you with Goodfellas, like, I'm completely aware of the context of it and all the, you know, pop culture references, and I was just like browsing Goodfellas stuff here.
I'm funny to you, like I'm a comedian.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
I'm a clown. Yes,
we got to keep in mind that Animaniacs, you know, is also a who you know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
Spielberg. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have Steven Spielberg coming in here just ripping on Scorsese with cartoon birds, you know. Like, I'm about to watch an entire documentary on Goodfellas right now.
When you think back to the stuff that like we watched growing up, there's a lot of mob references or mob movie references, and a lot of it, like they do it a lot.
Yeah, of course.
No. It's the God Pigeon.
If I could tell you how many times I've heard an animated fucking pig or something say, "You come to me now on the day of my daughter's wedding," and I'm like,
yes,
right?
Here we go again. We're doing that.
Oh yeah, because it's something that's continuously brought up, you know, again and again and again. Because I mean, it plays such an integral part in the, you know, the culture that we all watch and the language that we all speak to each other. I mean, that particular scene specifically, the one that you're talking about, from you know, The Godfather, just such an incredibly influential film on all the other filmmakers that come after, you know, Francis Ford Coppola and his ability to be able to depict, you know, that version of the mafia. And then you get Scorsese's take on it as well. I mean, I think there's something to be said about, you know, all these different variations on that and how it just permeates the culture. 100% it does.
Yeah, it's I think that's what kind of led to me being a very violent individual myself. Was,
like I said, I wanted
movies, to, you know, and those violent video games.
Those violent video games is what did it.
And also, here's a fun fact. Did you know that Tommy DeVito, the character that Joe Pesci plays in Goodfellas, was filmed at the exact same time as he was playing a gentleman by the name of Harry in this little-known independent film that you may have heard of called Home Alone?
The most violent movie Joe Pesci's ever been a part of? Yes.
Yeah,
you know what? I was waiting to work that joke into this podcast. I just couldn't figure it out, and I'm glad you set me up for it.
What's the line? What's the line from Home Alone with the fake movie that's on in the background? The like mafia gangster movie that doesn't exist.
Yeah, filthy animals.
Yeah, filthy animals. Yeah.
Home Alone's violent as hell.
Hell yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I loved Home Alone. What are you talking about, man? That was some good shit. Yeah,
I loved it too. I was like, I can't wait to do that.
Yeah, Home Alone is going to be Home Alone is going to. We'll probably do the Home Alone trilogy, all in one.
Oh, there's more than 3.
Oh, Jesus Christ, is there?
I don't know if I'm. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think there's 5 now. Yeah.
At some point in time, or is it still fucking the McAllister family? Because if it's still the McAllister family at 5 movies in,
let me look it up.
That's some horrendous parenting. That's what that is. Yeah,
no, it's a completely different family and kids.
They should be in prison.
There's a video I watched on YouTube from Legal Eagle, who went through all of the crimes committed in that movie, and it was really good. And he was basically, because he's a lawyer.
In Home Alone,
the people most at fault were definitely his parents.
Of course.
They for sure have the most broken laws. Although, you know, there's some attempted murder and stuff in there. But a lot of that could probably be dropped for self-defense.
Well, I mean, the fact he said booby traps is illegal, and it's...
Yeah.
Those weren't booby traps.
He had flamethrowers and, like, decapitating gadgets. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. That was just toys.
He had multiple inventions
yeah, you're right.
that would have killed people. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. There definitely should have been a lot more death in those movies. No doubt. Well, do you guys have anything else that you want to discuss before we introduce our new way of deciding what movie we're going to watch in the next episode? Yes, we're
introducing a new way
process. If not, this is the way that we're going to be doing it, at least Typically, every now and
We're
then
gonna try
we're
this
gonna,
out.
you know,
We're gonna try
probably
this out.
get out on social media and see what you guys want. That's the reason that we actually did Goodfellas. I guess we should have mentioned that.
Oh
We
yeah,
put it
by
to
the
a
way,
poll.
Goodfellas wins. The people
Yeah.
on Twitter and the people on Facebook, that is they chose the movie that we were going to be doing. The two options that were presented were the Royal Tenenbaums and Goodfellas. And my little brother specifically said he fucking hates the movie The Royal Tenenbaums. And I had to spend 20 minutes trying to convince him why he's wrong. And he's like, sometimes we have a different opinion. And I'm like, I don't understand yours. Your opinion doesn't make any sense to me. So
I feel that. I've been there. Anyway,
Yeah.
so this is what we're thinking. Every episode, we're going to all come together with a singular pitch, basically, for the next movie that we need to cover. So you need to have a movie in mind, and you need to be able to sell us on why that's the one
Sell
that we need to cover.
the movie that you want
This
to
is
do
a
on the next
podcast full
podcast.
of salespeople.
All right.
This should be fun.
I'm going first.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. Okay.
All right. No, Austin, it's not Terminator 2.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Okay.
I'd be sold on it. I'm already sold on it.
All right, there it is. We did it.
No.
Terminator 2. Have a nice night, guys. Everybody else.
We'll see you next week
Cue
on
the
Podcast
music.
Movie Podcast.
I'm coming in hot here. I don't recall if you guys did this prior. I think we should do Alien.
Mm.
And
Ooh.
the reason I want to throw Alien out is it's
I've
Women's
talked
History
about it a
Month.
lot. Oh.
Okay.
Women's
And
History
Alien-
Month. Yeah. there you
Alien
go, man.
is kind of ahead of its time in the sense that some of the characters that they wrote for this movie, specifically without mention of, gender as well, they were able to create characters that, for storytelling purposes, did not rely on being a man or being a woman specifically. They created characters first and then found actors based on who they wanted. And the fact that Sigourney Weaver was able to kind of come in as this lead heroine for a sci-fi, thriller, and the whole time you're watching it, you're not going, oh, this is a girl's movie, or oh, this is a movie about a woman. None of that matters. Like, it's just a horrifying space thriller. And the fact that they were doing this back in 1979 and, coming off the heels of Star Wars and stuff like that, you get this really gritty, I don't know. I think Alien would be a pretty cool one to dive into. And if it goes well, we kind of roll that into Aliens and Alien 3. And I'll be honest, I like
Whoa,
Alien
slow
3,
down.
Tyler.
Whoa.
I do too.
I do as well.
It's
Prometheus is
one of
where
my
I start
least
to
favorite.
get
It's my
lost.
least favorite of the
I've-
first three, but
I've never even finished watching Prometheus, so I probably should go back and revisit that. And we can eventually do Alien versus Predator because I have fun watching that movie.
I do too. AVP. I'm
AVP
into
is
it.
and awesome, dude.
Awesome.
And then we can go into Predator, and then we can tie in Alien versus Predator Requiem, and then we do all the Predators, and then I'm it's a path I'm starting, but
There you go.
I think we should open with
There you
Alien
go.
at some point.
All right, I like that. That's a good one. Very
Like it.
strong pitch. Austin, are you ready to go?
Well, here's the thing. No one told me we were doing this until now, so I don't have anything prepared. So I would
I BS'd all that.
What's
I
a
would
movie
love,
that you would like to for us to cover on here?
Well, firstly, I would like to say that I think Alien is a fantastic idea because I
No.
fucking love Alien, and I
No.
know what you're saying. Like, don't
You gotta-
choose what Rubyen chose. Whatever.
You gotta offer one.
All right. You ready? You want me to offer one?
Aliens.
Let me get Shark Tale.
Listen here, motherfucker. All right. I'm gonna probably
The
recommend
car wash.
Terminator 1 so we can finally
Oh.
watch Terminator 2 so many podcasts from now. So Terminator 1 because it's also, from what you guys tell me, it's also kind of horror. I
More
think,
horror than two.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it also has a woman main character, doesn't it?
You're making a great point right now,
good
and
point.
actually, I kind of want to change mine to Terminator.
Okay,
Um,
you can't.
so-
You can vote for his if you want to at the end.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Look, I think
All right.
Alien's
I see
a great
what you're
idea,
saying.
and I'll do Terminator 1 because I've never seen that shit.
Okay.
I would also be open if we end up going that route to just doing 1 and 2. But if you guys want to keep it with 1, I'm fine with that.
No, 1 now, 2 later. 2 has its own
2
podcast.
deserves its own.
No, you need
entire.
You need to see 2 like within. Like it's a national emergency. You got to see that goddamn movie.
Okay.
Okay. Weiss, what do you got?
So I'm going to go in a completely different direction, and I totally forgot it was Women's Month, Women's History Month.
Yeah,
And,
you would.
Did you say, yeah, you would?
Jesus.
What else is
Oh,
new?
man.
Am I right, boys?
Kind of went in a completely different direction. And the movie that I chose, let's see, does have a very strong central female character. So yeah, I think it actually fits the criteria that we're going for here. And I'm going to say The Princess Bride.
A movie
Okay.
I've actually seen.
So
Seen it
super
many
strong
times.
female character, incredible cast, incredibly rewatchable film. It is its 33rd anniversary. I think all the movies that we've mentioned so far are at least 30 years or older. So it really doesn't give me a leg to be able to stand on
Oh my god.
in my sales pitch. But it's one of those movies that I started thinking about it in terms of like movies that use like the voiceover narration to be able to kind of guide you throughout the entire film. And, like some of the films that actually do that whole thing the best. Shawshank Redemption obviously being like the number one that's on that list. Goodfellas, because there's a lot of narration that's done throughout Goodfellas. Kind of like
Scorsese
just
really
time
likes
jumps.
narration.
Loves
when I think about
narration.
it. He does it a lot.
Did Scorsese invent the skirt? I bet you're wondering how I got here, huh?
I don't think
Like
he
the
invented
record
that, but
scratch
he
shit?
damn
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
he
can
damn sure
imagine him doing
utilizes that. Absolutely. I love his fucking freeze frames that he does throughout the entire film,
Right.
where he like freezes something and then he kind of does that narration over the top of it, and then goes right back to the
Again,
story.
he did
at
like
hand,
6
so.
of those in the first 30
Yep.
minutes. I was like,
Yeah.
we're just gonna keep doing that.
So yeah, my film that I wanted to throw out there was The Princess Bride, because I fucking love that. I love that movie so much.
It's a good one.
All
Logan.
right, Logan.
The one that I'm thinking of, I think I've mentioned it on here before, but it's definitely a less mainstream type movie, and I don't expect it to win. But I would really like to do a foreign film. I was thinking about some of my favorite ones, and the one that I really, really like from both a story and action point of view is Old Boy.
God,
The
I knew you were gonna
original.
fucking say
Oh,
it. Jesus
hell
Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Old Boy.
That
I
mo-
knew you were gonna
That
say
movie's
that.
fucked up.
The movie's
the fucking,
fucked up.
The
There is
remake
a-
of it is a no bueno. Don't watch it.
No.
We're gonna pretend like the remake of it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
100% stick with the original.
Literally just whitewashing and making it worse.
Way
Goddamn
worse. Jesus
white
Christ,
people,
so much
dude.
worse.
God. Anyways, yeah, if you haven't, I know Austin hadn't seen this movie. There's no way.
Correct.
Yeah.
This movie is just, it's dark. It's definitely dark. It's got
Oh,
a
yeah.
crazy
Yep.
story. It's got, I
Yep.
would say, if it's not the best, it's in the top 3 best action sequences
Ever
put
Yep.
to film by
Yeah.
far. It is
copied
legendary.
800 billion times, and if it was not for that particular sequence that's in the film, we would not have The Matrix. We would not have John Wick. We would not have that. It's a fighting style. It's a fight choreograph style that was created for that film. Very incredibly well done.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about it is there is a reveal, a story reveal that makes you literally sick to your stomach.
Yeah.
And when you get the same sensation from the main character as well, because he experiences it with you, and it is just, it really makes you in the feels. I watched this movie on a CRTV years ago, Rubyen
Same.
style, and
Yeah.
just in a
Rubyen style.
in a bedroom over at my friend's house.
That's exactly how I watched it.
Yeah,
my buddy, this is like 2006. He's like, "Hey, you ever seen a movie called Old Boy?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "All right, hold on, watch this." fucking pulls out a DVD and hooks it up. He's like, dude, we're watching this. I was like, I'm locked in. Let's go. And then the whole time I'm like, dude, this is fucking uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It
It's a
is,
very
but
uncomfortable film to watch.
It's
but
uncomfortable.
incredibly well made.
Really like to get a foreign film on here. But that's my pick. So we'll be right
All
back
right.
with Final Jeopardy.
So, like, what do? Are we putting these movies on the social media and people
No.
vote for them?
We're
or
gonna vote
like-
for them right now. Here we go.
Oh,
All right.
So-
are you allowed
I
to
guess,
vote for your own?
Yeah, you can vote for your own. You can vote for somebody else's.
I don't think
Oh.
we should
But
be
you
able to
don't-
vote for our own because then
You
you get
can-
like a Pirates of the Caribbean situation where
No.
everybody just votes for themselves.
No, you can vote
What-
for
what?
yourself, or you can vote for somebody else's film.
Am I typing it in, or are we
Nope.
saying
Here
it
we
out
go.
loud?
I'm
Ready?
going
or-
to, as the host, I'm going to ask you each for your vote. So, Tyler, what do you vote for?
I vote for Alien.
Okay. Austin, what do you vote for?
Oh, good God! Oh no!
You've got 5 seconds on the clock.
Oh no! You know what? Alien.
Oh,
Okay.
so then it's decided.
We're tied right now. Ruben, it's up to you. Do you
I mean, I would
want
like
to?
I would like to see the Terminator.
Oh wow!
Oh, so it's
oh
all
wow!
up to
Holy
me.
shit! It's up to Logan. Logan,
All right. Now
you
I could,
are the deciding vote.
All right. Well, I would like to see Alien as well.
Fuck
Of
yeah!
those two. So
Fuck yeah.
I think it looks like we're going to be doing Alien, ladies and
We're
gentlemen.
gonna do Alien and then Kill Bill. Jesus Christ!
Oh,
The
yeah.
1-2 punch, man.
Oh, I forgot about Tarantino
Jesus.
episodes.
Almost
Christ! Yeah,
Oh, you guys are in for some good shit out of
Hell yeah.
Podcast the
I
Movie
love
the
it.
Podcast. Man, I haven't seen Alien in a while. This is going to be fun.
it's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah,
I watched
think
it
I
like
haven't
a
seen
week
it
and a
in
half
few
ago.
years.
It's like my dad's
Um,
maybe second or third favorite movie. So maybe I'll
Yeah.
go watch it with him.
No, you got to watch
There you go.
Alien, and then you got to play Alien Isolation because that shit is
No,
awesome.
I can't.
Let me
I
tell you
can't play
something
it.
about Alien Isolation. There is a specific part where you're having to go down the hallways and the lights keep blinking out, and then you go into this one
In the
particular
first like
room.
2 hours.
Yeah, and then you go into this room, and the xenomorph drops from the fucking ceiling, and you walk up and you're supposed to be able to pick this fucking lock, and the whole time you're like, oh, and you get that feeling of, oh shit, I'm gonna die here any second, and then the fucking thing stabs you through the chest. Yeah, dude, I noped out of that thing so many times.
That game is so good. Like, I love that game.
Love it so much.
So
Yeah.
good.
Well, you guys can do that. I'm just going to watch the movie.
Okay.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, I'm gonna go buy the 4K movie, the 4K copy. I have it on regular Blu-ray, but I'd like to see it in 4K.
Yeah, watch it in 4K. The
Yeah, we'll just-
remastering
I have
it
the
is
4K one.
awesome.
I know I have it on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I have it.
We'll watch it, and then we'll play Alien Isolation, and that'll be on the B-side podcast of
Oh shit!
Okay.
podcast, the video game, the podcast.
I'm pretty sure that's not what it's called.
I'm in on the C list.
Oh,
I just put it on the D list, just to be
Okay.
safe.
Okay.
All right. I don't know if you guys, and I'm not acting salty, but I just am curious. Would watching like a foreign film at some point in the future be of interest to you guys? It doesn't have to be
100%.
Old Boy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's great ones out there.
Old Boy, Parasite. Those are the two that
I never
really-
did watch Parasite.
I've
really
heard
good movie.
I've heard Train to Busan is really good too.
Yeah, Train to Busan is really good.
Yeah.
Great zombie flick. So, yep. And then they made a sequel to it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe
I'd-
something
yeah.
else we could do. Because this is the first time we're doing it, but maybe we come with like a genre, and we have to pick a movie within a certain
Oh.
genre or a certain decade or something. We
Love
can
it.
flesh this out. See what's going on.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in again this week to Podcast the Movie, the podcast. It was a good one. This was a Tyler heavy episode, just the way you like it.
You're welcome.
We'll see you guys next week with Alien.
Baba Booey.
Baba Booey.
Baba Booey.